581-6858 today. Spectrum Business, made to work.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
I'm Carla Redditt. Here's your Spectrum News in 90. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are preparing for a pivotal new stretch of the 2024 campaign. Both candidates are focusing on battleground states ahead of their debate 1 week away. The former president will participate in a town hall in Pennsylvania Wednesday. Meanwhile, in Florida, allies of the Harris-Walz campaign kicked off a reproductive rights bus tour expected to make more than 50 stops in key battleground states. Protests continue in Tel Aviv as the Israeli government faces growing calls to reach a deal to bring hostages home. Demonstrators took to the streets after the Israeli military recovered the bodies of 6 hostages held by their captors in Gaza. The U.S. says it's working on a new ceasefire deal amid fears of growing violence. America's massive hotel strike just got bigger. Baltimore hotel workers joined a nationwide strike against 3 major hotel chains, and it could expand even farther. The strike started Sunday morning, impacting the Labor Day holiday weekend across 9 U.S. cities. More than 10,000 employees are battling for better wages and working conditions.
And while the top line performance of hotels has improved, the bottom line is not screamingly good, if you will.
Those are your headlines. Now your weather on the ones.
Meteorologist Brittany Hamilton here with you as we take a look across the country. A lot of shower and storm activity going on across parts of the Gulf states, some cloud cover in the Midwest, and a few showers in the Rockies as well. The heat is rebuilding back in the West Coast, 90 degrees on Wednesday, 111 for Phoenix, but definitely a nice cool down across parts of the East Coast, feeling a little bit like a taste of fall with temperatures around 76 in New York, 83 in Minneapolis, and 86 degrees in Dallas with rain.
Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Carla Redditt in for Sharon Taswell. Presidential contenders Kamala Harris and Donald Trump have begun a 2-month sprint to Election Day with their campaigns, and their paths to the White House are becoming clear. Both Trump and Harris are focusing nearly all of their remaining time and resources on a small collection of undecided voters in just 7 states. Spectrum's Evan Kosloff is in Washington as the 2 candidates are preparing to go head-to-head next week in their first ever debate.
Kamala Harris is focused on you.
Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign launched a new ad on Tuesday focused on inflation and lowering costs. This ahead of her visit to New Hampshire on Wednesday, where she's expected to outline more of her economic plan.
Building up the middle class will be a defining goal of my presidency.
It's an effort to reshape perceptions, as polls show that voters trust former President Donald Trump over Harris when it comes to handling the economy. The state of New Hampshire hasn't gone for a Republican in a presidential race since 2000, and right now polling shows Harris with a comfortable lead. Still, Trump arguing on social media that this visit shows that the Harris campaign is worried about the state. Trump writing in part, the cost of living in New Hampshire is through the roof. Their energy bills are some of the highest in the country, and their housing market is the most unaffordable in history. Trump will also be on the trail on Wednesday, speaking at a Fox News town hall in Pennsylvania.
Don't sleep on Florida.
Meanwhile, in Florida, surrogates for Harris kicked off what they're calling a reproductive rights bus tour.
It is not lost on us that we are just 10 miles from Mar-a-Lago. He calls it the Winter White House. I call it his retirement home.
Florida is one of nearly a dozen states with abortion on the ballot. This November, Floridians will vote on a referendum to protect abortion access through viability. Trump riled conservative voters last week by suggesting he might vote yes on Florida's ballot question to enshrine abortion rights in the state constitution. But after a backlash from conservatives, Trump said he'd vote no on this referendum. Trump allies argue that this election will come down to kitchen table issues.
The ballot initiative in Florida has no bearing on the cost of food in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan or anywhere else.
Evan Kozlov joins us now from the Washington Bureau. And Evan, we're also now learning that the Harris campaign is funneling millions of dollars to races down ballot. So what can you tell us about that, and what does it show?
Right, Carla, we're talking about a lot of money here, nearly $25 million that's being transferred away from the presidential campaign and being sent down to down-ballot races. That includes $10 million for Senate races, $10 million for House races, and then millions more, which are going to state-level offices. So candidates running for state legislature, for governor, for attorney general. So there's a lot of money that's being sent here, and part of it is just that the Harris campaign has the money to spare. We heard late last month from the campaign that they brought in more than $500 million. That's billion with a B in just this 6 weeks. So they have the money. On top of that, if she does win this election and becomes the president, she would need a majority in Congress to get any of her agenda off the ground. Carla.
All right. Evan Kozlov in Washington. Thanks so much. Trump is expected to plead not guilty to a revised indictment against him following the January 6th riots at the U.S. Capitol. That's according to a court filing Tuesday, which also shows Trump is waiving his right to appear in person at an upcoming court hearing on Thursday, allowing his lawyer to enter the plea on his behalf. The new indictment was laid out by special counsel Jack Smith in an effort to follow the Supreme Court's ruling on presidential immunity. The former president faces the same 4 criminal charges. And in Trump's New York hush money case, the federal judge denies his request to move the case to federal court. In his ruling, the judge found there is nothing in the Supreme Court's ruling on immunity that alters his view of the fact that the payments were private, unofficial acts. Turning to the Middle East, the U.S. Department of Justice has charged several senior Hamas leaders over the October 7th terrorist attack in Israel. It's the first criminal step by the DOJ to hold people accountable for the attack. And it comes as protests are growing in Tel Aviv, calling on the Israeli government to reach a ceasefire in Gaza. Spectrum's Rena Diamante reports from Washington.
For the third straight night, protesters took to the streets of Tel Aviv, concerned that time is running out to rescue the dozens of Israelis held hostage by Hamas in Gaza. The demonstration followed the killing of 6 hostages in Gaza, including a 23-year-old Israeli-American citizen, Hirsch Goldberg Poland. Demonstrators are trying to pressure Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to reach a deal with Hamas to release the remaining captives.
Tragically, any deal to bring home the hostages will come too late for him. But there are dozens of hostages still remaining in Gaza, still waiting for a deal that will bring them home. It is time to finalize that deal.
White House officials said Tuesday they're working on a new proposal to release the remaining hostages, put in place a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, and bring relief to the people of Gaza. Biden administration officials rejected the notion that this would be a so-called take it or leave it proposition.
Make no mistake about it, Hamas leaders are going to pay for these crimes. And he and his team, for sure, will keep working around the clock to get this hostage deal done.
A stumbling block to a deal appears to be control over 2 strips of land in Gaza. One of those corridors is on the Egypt border. Netanyahu says Hamas has used it to smuggle weapons into Gaza.
They go through one place, the Philadelphia corridor. This is Hamas' lifeline.
Egypt and Hamas refute Israel's claims, and Hamas declared that there must be a full withdrawal of Israeli military in Gaza. When asked if Netanyahu was doing enough, President Joe Biden simply said no.
The president sees the prime minister as someone he has known for some time now, for decades. They tend to have honest conversations, direct conversations.
The United Nations Security Council is set to convene on Wednesday for the first time since the October 7th attack to discuss the war. In Washington, Rena Diamante, Spectrum News.
In Ukraine, dozens are dead and hundreds more wounded after a Russian attack on a military academy and a nearby hospital. It's one of the deadliest attacks since the start of Moscow's full-scale invasion in February of 2022. The missile strikes happened just hours after Russia launched a separate aerial attack in the southern part of the country Tuesday. The strikes killed at least 3 people, including an 8-year-old boy. Thousands of hotel workers remain on strike across 9 U.S. cities. What employees are calling for, coming up on Spectrum News.
Spectrum News Plus. News from a new perspective, dedicated to refreshing storytelling and empowering communities across the nation. With balanced reporting, providing real context and in-depth coverage 24 hours a day.
Here's a look at your forecast across the country.
Local stories, connecting communities. We are Spectrum News Plus. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
At Spectrum, we know that internet is a vital tool to help you fulfill your dreams.
My dream is to become a video game developer.
My dream is to get my online college degree. That's why Spectrum has affordable solutions to keep you connected. At Spectrum, we are committed to delivering reliable, affordable internet and unlimited mobile to keep you connected to what matters most to you.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable. The sad reality is, fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
It's meteorologist Brittany Hamilton here with you, and as we take a look at our weather headlines over the next few days, in terms of severe weather, we do have some chances for that across parts of the plains and the upper Midwest. We could see a few strong showers and storms that have gusty winds with them, but also the flooding risk down in the Gulf states. Comfortable temperatures across much of the East Coast, so if you've been enjoying that slight taste of fall, that's going to be around for a few days. Definitely soak that in. Heat is building back in the West, so the West Coast, as well as some of the desert regions dealing with some extreme heat over the next couple of days. Now, looking at satellite and radar, a few showers and storms across parts of the northern tier of the country, but really a lot of the heavier rain, the flooding rain, has been down in Texas, Louisiana, and unfortunately, that's not going to change anytime soon. As we look at our excessive rainfall outlook for Wednesday, a marginal risk in some areas that go all the way over into the panhandle of Florida, extends into Mississippi as well as southern Arkansas and back into Texas, Houston included in that level 1 risk, but a level 2 risk for areas like New Orleans, Mobile, Alabama as well included in that. We're likely to see some very heavy flooding rain, and that could cause issues if you do have to be out on the road. So we say turn around, don't drown. We really mean that. But there's a lot of available moisture here for these showers and storms all the way through Thursday. So as we're looking at this on the Futurecast, you're continuing to see showers and storms developing across much of the Gulf states. Still a few showers as well coming off the Rockies. But again, much of the the country is not seeing a lot of rain except for the Gulf regions as we go into the end of the week. But the heat is definitely building back in. LA 94 degrees by Thursday, 114 for Phoenix. So some extreme heat out there. We'll talk more about those heat alerts coming up in just about 10 minutes. Temperature's pretty nice in New York, 77 degrees for Thursday, 86 in Chicago, starting to heat up again across parts of the Midwest with 90 in Kansas City.
If you're just joining us, here's what you need to know. The Harris Walls campaign launched a bus tour focused on reproductive rights Tuesday. Allies addressed supporters on the tour's first stop in Palm Beach, Florida. The tour is expected to make 50 stops in key battleground states. Trump is also focusing his campaign efforts on battleground states. The former president will participate in a town hall in Pennsylvania Wednesday ahead of next week's debate with Harris. Protests in Tel Aviv reach a third straight night after the Israeli military recovered the bodies of 6 hostages over the weekend. The U.S. says it's working on a new ceasefire deal amid fears of growing violence. And that's what you need to know. A decision on whether to reclassify marijuana as a less dangerous drug will not happen until after the 2024 presidential election. The DEA set a hearing on the potentially historic policy shift for December 2nd, nearly 1 month following Election Day. This timeline for the decision makes it more likely that both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump will weigh in on the issue. The potential change would recognize that marijuana has less potential for abuse than other drugs. Thousands of hotel workers are on strike from the East Coast to the West Coast and Hawaii. Employees are aiming to draw attention to post-pandemic work conditions they say are untenable. Spectrum's Ariel Wessler has more on the impact the strikes are having.
After as many as 10,200 hotel workers at 25 hotels from Boston to the West Coast to Hawaii went on strike during the busy Labor Day weekend.
An industry like this should be offering adequate wages for people to only need one job to live.
At least 840 employees went back to work Tuesday. The strikes planned to last just 2 or 3 days, but grabbed the attention of hotels and travelers.
Really hard to be in this business and smile and greet the guests when in the back of your mind you're trying to figure out where your next meal is going to come from.
Unite Here, the union representing hotel workers, says workers want more pay and a restoration of some practices scrapped during the COVID-19 pandemic.
As those services remain cut, it makes the work harder for the workers that remain, and it makes the hotels less appealing to guests.
But hotels argue guests are no longer asking for daily room cleaning and other services. Affected hotels have stayed open, but with some service disruptions, which can have an impact even when strikes are short.
Groups may cancel or postpone their events. There's guests who may choose not to travel because the dining room is closed or the spa is closed, and those sorts of disruptive elements.
Sean Hennessy of New York University's Tisch Center of Hospitality says travel may be booming, but hotels and airlines and restaurants have all faced the squeeze of inflation.
Things like wage rates, taxation, utility costs, food costs, those have all increased dramatically. And while the top line performance of hotels has improved, the bottom line is not screamingly good, if you will.
Hilton and Hyatt are among the hotel chains that have seen strikes this week. Both have said they are committed to reaching deals with the union. Unite Here hopes to replicate its recent success in Southern California, where after repeated strikes, it won significant wage hikes, among other benefits, in a new contract with 34 hotels. Workers ratified that contract back in March, giving housekeepers at most of those hotels $35 an hour by July 2027. Ariel Wessler, Spectrum News.
A former aide to 2 New York governors has been charged with acting as an agent of the Chinese government and receiving benefits for it. Federal prosecutors say Linda's son was arrested with her husband Tuesday morning in Long Island. Prosecutors say Sun blocked Taiwanese government representatives from access to the governor's office and shaped New York messaging to align with the Chinese government. Sun worked for current New York Governor Kathy Hochul and former Governor Andrew Cuomo, but was fired just last year when the findings came to light. Her husband is also facing multiple charges, including money laundering conspiracy. Staying cool while while playing in the Texas heat. Coming up on Spectrum News, how high school football coaches make sure their players are safe from scorching temperatures.
Here's the deal. In this election year, people need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
Give me one good reason why I shouldn't switch to Spectrum Enterprise.
Well, you said our services meet some of your technology needs.
But not all.
Well, maybe you have too many.
Demand better. And when they call you unreasonable, call us.
Look, I'm switching to Spectrum Enterprise because they'll be a true partner, and I can't run this network without one.
I think you can.
Our clients do it all the time.
Demand better. And when they call you unreasonable, call us.
I tell my son, I love you every single day. I love you. Now, my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious moment.
Food isn't just fuel to live, it's fuel to grow. My family relied on public assistance to help provide meals for us. These meals fueled my involvement in theater and the arts as a child, which fostered my love for acting. The Feeding America network of food banks helps millions of people put food on the table. When people are fed, futures are nourished. Join the movement to end hunger, and together we can open endless possibilities for people to thrive. Visit feedingamerica.org/actnow.
Meteorologist Brittany Hamilton here with you for your weather on the ones, and we talked about the heat that's building across parts of the West Coast. As we take a look at heat alerts this week for California specifically, you can see some areas under a heat advisory with the heat index values and actual temperatures reaching triple-digit marks. And then you have excessive heat warnings, and that does include areas around Las Vegas, Los Angeles included in that, and southern Arizona also included in that excessive heat warning. So you always have to take the heat seriously. You do not want to have heat stroke or heat exhaustion. So if you're getting too hot, you do want to try to cool yourself down. Now, in terms of where we are compared to normal, a lot of the West Coast, including parts of the Pacific Northwest, seeing temperatures that are 8 to 15 degrees above average, about 12 degrees above average by the time we get into Friday for Los Angeles. But look at the other side of the country, the East Coast, seeing cooler than average temperatures coming into play. So it's been a little taste of fall for some parts of the country. Others still feeling a lot like summer, and technically it is still summer. As we're looking at high temperatures for Wednesday, Portland getting to 93 degrees, 108 for Phoenix. We'll see temperatures starting to heat up again a little bit across parts of the Midwest as well. St. Louis around 87 along with Columbus, 78 in Raleigh and 75 in New York. So those are very comfortable and below average temperatures for this time of the year. Now, as we go into Thursday and even into Friday, we're going to see warmer air coming in, temperatures warming back up near 100 degrees in Portland, around 85 in Oklahoma City, and starting to warm up a little bit again across parts of the Southeast with temperatures back in the mid 80s. Now, as we look ahead to 6 to 10 days from now, we're expecting to see temperatures likely cooler than average across the East Coast, but the West Coast still seeing above average temperatures. That's going to be very likely as we go well into next week. Now, in terms of the tropics, we have a few areas that we're watching right now, and a couple of them actually have a moderate chance of development. So the area that is just south of Hispaniola expected to move closer through the Caribbean Sea, maybe has a moderate chance and also a moderate chance behind this other lower chance here. So disturbances that we're watching, not actual systems as of yet, but climatologically, we are getting to the peak of hurricane season, which is typically mid-September. So we tend to see the most storms develop during this time. We'll keep you guys up to date if anything does form.
The Grand Slam happening at the U.S. Open right now is a cocktail. It's the drink everyone is talking about, the Honey Deuce. It's a mix of vodka, lemonade, and raspberry liqueur, topped with melons in the shape of tennis balls. Sales for this drink at the U.S. Open in New York are expected to hit more than $10 million by the time the event ends. This signature pink drink comes in at $23 a cup. Student athletes are back on the field all across the country as they begin their fall sports season. In Texas, there are new procedures in place when it comes to outdoor activities. Spectrum's Jose Arredondo spoke with 2 football coaches who are keeping their players cool and safe as the temperatures remain high.
Wake up! Here we go, guys. Here we go. Ready?
Darnell Barnes is proud to be the head coach of the Roosevelt Rough Riders.
It's hands inside to block.
At the end of playing football at Roosevelt High School in 4 years, I want them to look back on something that they really enjoy.
Barnes walked these same halls 20 years ago as a student. His roots are planted in this Northeast San Antonio community. Player safety is a huge priority for his coaching staff, especially with the scorching South Texas temperatures. It's why his varsity and JV practice at 7 a.m.
But we still come out after school to do our special teams and some individual drills. So last week we had to push practice back to 5:30 or even 6 o'clock starts to make sure that we weren't too hot on the heat index.
UIL ushered in new protocols for the 2024-25 season. During high temperatures, practice can be shortened, more water breaks are required, and the amount of equipment worn can be lessened. It's measured by the Wet Bulb Globe Temperature app.
And so we get updates directly from our trainer, Dr. Henshaw. She lets us know when we're getting too hot with temperatures.
It's an app Lanier head football coach South Diaz monitors every day. For example, if the app shows green, then practice goes as usual.
This is, if we're in the red, we can only practice at this time. We're in the orange, we can only practice this time. And we have limited equipment we could use, limited time, right? And then we're in the black, we're not practicing at all.
The heat was felt at Lanier, which sits in the heart of a heat island, an area that experiences higher temperatures. Coach Diaz now holds practice for the freshman, JV, and varsity at 7:15 a.m.
And make sure we get the best out of the kids. More is not always best, right? Well, in the past, right, I think we outworked our kids, and we kind of practiced them too much in the afternoon and in the sun.
Wet Bulb measures lightning within 10 miles of the school. It forced Barnes to take his team inside twice in one morning. However, it's the heat which has student trainers on their toes.
The trainers and myself, we just make sure that we stay well hydrated, and we're making sure that we eat throughout the day so that we don't have our own heat stroke or pass out or anything.
Our student athletic trainers do a great job of having water ready for us. We have buckets with sponges. They come around, put it on our heads.
Whether it's Rough Rider Nation or in the pride of the West Side, keeping student athletes safe is the main objective on the gridiron for these coaches.
706, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
In San Antonio, Jose Arredondo, Spectrum News.
I'm Carla Reddit. Thanks so much for watching. Your Spectrum News in 9 days coming up right after this short break. Stay with us.
At Spectrum News, we're committed to strengthening the fabric of local communities through our reporting, with stories that inspire and news that matters. Streaming live on your smart TV and connected devices, plus on-demand weather forecasts. It's all there as you step outside with the Spectrum News mobile app, keeping you informed and in the know throughout your day. Spectrum News Plus, local stories connecting communities. Exclusively for Spectrum customers. Now available on your favorite devices.
At Spectrum, our workforce of over 100,000 employees are all located right here in the U.S. You can find them in our stores, in the field, and in our call centers with 100% U.S.-based customer service. Our team works hard to provide the towns, cities, and neighborhoods they live in with the reliable services that everyone counts on, making us one of America's most trusted companies. We're Spectrum, creating jobs and opportunities across the country, and proud to be one.
Or our family's secret sauce. We all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/team up.
Sometimes in life, in order to move forward, it helps to look back. To learn from the pioneers and trailblazers.
To gain inspiration from those who came before us.
To show us what it means to act with empathy and to show that love has no labels.
Join WWE and Love Has No Labels throughout the year in celebrating people from all communities and heritages.
Because when love has no labels, that's a love we can all fight for.